Welcome to InnerGLOW, the podcast that helps you to ditch anxiety, judgment, stress, and self-doubt, and instead embody ease, confidence, flow, abundance, and self-love. I'm your host, Bhavna Meg, mindset and energy coach, and founder of Stepping Into You. I work with individuals just like you on emotional, mental, and energetic levels to help you to fall in love with yourself and glow from the inside out. This is episode 9. Today we're exploring guilty pleasures and what you can do to curb them. So many of us are on a path to growth and expansion, but what about those treats? What about those naughty habits? And what about those indulgences that we just can't seem to kick? Today, I'll be sharing with you some examples from clients that I've worked with, going from food through to shopping and others in between, and have a look at what actually drives these pleasures and what drives our choices towards these pleasures. As always, be sure to listen all the way to the end for a super simple way to start shifting out of making choices that are not in our greatest and highest good and start falling more deeply in love with yourself. Let's begin by first defining what a guilty pleasure is. A guilty pleasure is something that you know, and to your very core, you know within you is not good for you. This can be because it's unhealthy. This can be because it's perhaps lazy if you're trying to exercise. This is perhaps because it is a momentary high and you know that it's not good for you in the long run. Now let's have a look at what this means energetically. When we are eating, doing, or being whatever it is to create a little high within ourselves, but we're doing it with the energy of guilt, this is exactly how our body is going to process it. It turns into guilty energy. As a result, one of the things that I do now when I have, say, a naughty chocolate bar, I will do a little blessing. I will eat it with love and with appreciation, with the knowing that my body will absorb only what's good for it and release everything else. So what are some of the examples that I've had with clients? Chocolate is definitely one of the ones that is high up there on the list. It's often as a means of comfort. So when we're feeling a little bit down or clients are feeling a little bit down, they'll reach for chocolate and their mind-body association is with the feeling of comfort, even though they really know that it's not very good for them and the volume at which they're eating it is not good for them. Another example is shopping. So shopping for a new outfit or a new handbag or a new pair of shoes and experiencing a sense of excitement, a sense of feeling sexy or feeling good in our body. So when we're trying on this new outfit, it makes us feel good. But that feeling doesn't last very long. So then the shopping continues. It becomes a habit for the reward of looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing something that looks good. And additionally, the reward of other people saying to you that you look good and complimenting your outfit, complimenting your shoes, complimenting the handbag. And this helps to feed that habit that we will shop again and buy more stuff. Another example is with smoking. There are people who I know in my world who smoke socially. So the high that we're getting from it is that feeling of calm or feeling of relaxed or a feeling of a connection to the peer group. When other people that you're with are smoking, you're able to go with them and do the same thing. Smoking has got a lot of social connections and marketing built around it for decades. So this is very, very visible in the way that we and people have a connection to and guilty pleasure with smoking. A final example that I'll add here is the use of alcohol and drugs. And when we're using either one of those things to create a high or a calm or a low, whatever the state it's designed to elicit. When we're doing it from a state of need or to forget or to feel something different, that's when it becomes a guilty pleasure. Now, I'm all for variety being the spice of life and creating and having an incredibly diverse and very experiential human experience. The challenge is when these things, these little pleasures that we are trying and tasting in life become habits for us that are not healthy. So how do we know when these things have gone from healthy and we're experiencing them to explore the vastness of the human experience? How do we know when it's gone from that to when it's unhealthy? When it's becoming unhealthy, it's when you are choosing it instead of sitting with yourself, when you are choosing it instead of having going inwards and feeling into the challenges, the edges, and the hurt that you might be experiencing. When you are using those things to feel something different to what you currently feel. That's when anything healthy, anything that we are trying and experiencing for this lifetime becomes an unhealthy experience, particularly when it starts to become a habit. It becomes a habit when we do it often enough that our mind and body memorizes it as a state. So when you're feeling the emotions, the low emotions that you have in life, maybe they're sad, maybe they're hurt, maybe they're stressed out, maybe they're angry, when we're feeling any one of these cocktail of emotions, our habit, our body and mind triggers us and tells us to reach for these things because they make us feel better. And that better is not truly a better. What it's doing is suppressing our ability to really fully feel into those emotions and process them. So, what are some of the challenges of really moving out of or through some of these guilty pleasures and maybe resetting them back into a place of health and being healthy and being choices that we're consciously making rather than subconsciously and habitually making? Some of the challenges are around the emotions that we're experiencing as a result of these particular habits. Now, we experience these secondary gains. So, when it's the high, when it's the connection with our peers, when it's the comfort, those are all emotions that we are experiencing as a result of these guilty pleasures. And we want to make sure that we can still experience those emotional states with the absence of the guilty pleasure. This is when we're going to move ourselves back into a place of healthy. Before we continue with the next part of the show, if what I've shared with you today is resonating with you, leave a review. It goes a long way to help share the love with others who are going through the same things and would benefit from the tips and tools to turn on their inner glow. Another way to share the love is by making a donation at patreon.com/stepping into you to share your love with me and with others. A couple of the key challenges that people experience when working with guilty pleasures and unhealthy habits is around this secondary gain situation and also going cold turkey. Let's use eating chocolate as an example. Clients that I've worked with have and do reach for chocolate as a bit of a habit, perhaps after they've had some dinner or when they're feeling a little bit low in themselves, when they've had a very, very emotional day. And it can be both. In that situation, they're looking for some comfort. So getting a bar of chocolate out of the fridge and easily consuming the whole thing, which, I've done that in the past, so I understand where it comes from. And it's a little bit of a mixture of, oh, this feels really good. And then, oh, wow, this is super yummy. So I'm just going to keep going. And before you know it, you're watching TV and you're eating a bar of chocolate and it's completely gone. What's happened in those situations is two things. They are getting the emotional benefit from eating the chocolate, of feeling comforted, of feeling emotionally nurtured. knowing that they're not physically nurturing their bodies, they're feeling emotional nurturing. And then secondly, trying to go cold turkey, trying to switch out of and cut off these habits and these guilty pleasures cold turkey. And this I've seen in many people and many clients, and it doesn't work. The second they are experiencing the stressful emotional state, they reach for that comfort food. Being aware of the secondary gains is a great place to start. So, first of all, being mindful of the emotion that's and the trigger that's leading you to choose these guilty pleasures and these unhealthy habits, but then also acknowledging the experience that you have with the consumption of them. So, when you're eating the chocolate, how is it that you feel? Because we want to make sure that even once we've released the thing that's the emotional state that's triggering then the reach for the chocolate. So if you're feeling perhaps sad or stressed out, and that's what's causing you to reach for the chocolate, we want to clear that stress, but we also want to be able to acknowledge and still be able to feel that level of comfort, that level of nurture at the emotional level, to make sure that this secondary gain is still being served. Removing the stress that's leading you to reach for the chocolate, go shopping, or reach for the cigarette, whatever that guilty pleasure is something that you can do with a whole host of different tools and working with lots of different coaches and energy workers. Ensuring that you then bring in and pull in that pleasure state into that process is super important. So that second channel, the second challenge of going cold turkey. Now, don't get me wrong, it has, and I've seen it work for some people, but more often than not, it doesn't. And denying ourselves of something that we haven't really cleared at the emotional subconscious level is creating that much more pressure on our bodies to transition to something that is a healthier state. One example is with a client who actually had this eating chocolate. One example is actually with a client who was experiencing unhealthy eating habits, and chocolate was actually one of them, having a bar of chocolate at dinner time every evening. When setting, after we'd cleared the stress around what was going on and what was triggering the situation and the reach for the chocolate, and doing subconscious work around making healthy eating choices and healthy, nurturing eating choices for physical body and for emotional body, we set up some activation steps or action steps. And the client's first pick was to switch the chocolate bar for a cup of tea, so a herbal tea instead. And I could sense the resistance in her physical body, in her emotional body around this. And I challenged this action step with her and asked if it was truly achievable. Because if right now she's eating one whole bar of chocolate a night, would it be easier to eat two pieces and have a cup of tea? So we're reducing the guilty pleasure and introducing the new habit and the new healthy nurturing thing rather than going cold turkey. And this was really important because we needed to create momentum towards this new state of being without creating too much resistance around it. The resistance I could feel in her emotional body, and gave her permission to do something that felt easier and more achievable and create, as I said, momentum towards this new state of being. So I've done a full spoiler on today's tip, and it is very much around reducing instead of omitting, weaning ourselves off of the unhealthy and guilty pleasure and moving into a state of loving ourselves more. And we can do this, first of all, by acknowledging and identifying what the guilty pleasure is, whether it is the eating the whole chocolate bar, whether it is shopping when we don't actually need to buy anything, whether it is reaching for the cigarette because it feels good to go out and have a smoke with our friends, or whether it's drinking or something else entirely. Identifying that guilty pleasure and that particular unhealthy habit, and then starting to implement ways of reducing that and replacing it with something that is healthier. This is going to start moving you towards a healthier state of being. And of course, removing the stress around what's leading to this particular guilty pleasure or this unhealthy habit is going to create that much more ease around this change and the transition. But certainly on a conscious level, you can start by taking those little baby steps towards creating a happier, healthier you. That's all for today. Let me know how you get on with that tip and how easy or challenging it is for you to wean off of your guilty pleasure and move into healthier states for yourself. Join me next week for episode 10, Integrating Rituals, where we'll be looking at healthy rituals and how we can integrate them into our lives to experience more success, more expansion, more growth, and of course, more self-love. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to subscribe at steppingintoyou.com/innerglow so you don't miss any glowing possibilities. And if you'd love to support InnerGLOW, you can make a donation at patreon.com/innerglow. Sending you love, hugs, and magic.